So I will start here with the. I think it's good that we just. I'm going to talk about cinema and praxis and how it relates to the problematic of the gift. The gift is where I'm coming from. Of course, the core. I'm coming from Malawi, and there. Here it's otherwise known as underdevelopment, but I think it's simplistic. I did my PhD on the problematic of the gift and how the problem of the gift animates society, and I studied my own traditions in Malawi, the neo-masculine tradition, and it's a very sophisticated philosophy, that by coming out of it, I decided that perhaps Southern Africa is the hardest place for capitalism to break because of this sophisticated philosophy these people developed. Okay. Yeah. So the gift is basically, well, I think it will come up as I speak. You get to know. But African society in Southern Africa are driven with the gift. That's the type opposed to here, capital. There, it's the gift at the heart of African thinking. It's actually pretty polar opposites, and that's what's happening at Trafalgar Square. I think for me, Nelson represents the capital, a patriarchal, I could call it roughly, economy, and Chilembwe there presents the horizontal gift economy. So it's a good confrontation on Trafalgar Square. Chilembwe captures the skyline like an angel, while Nelson is trying to reach the heavens. It's a good confrontation. It's exactly what's happening in South Africa for me, Southern Africa for me. So I was glad to be invited and to make this work for Trafalgar Square, so then I could share my thinking that's inspired by the economies of where I'm coming from. It was very important for me. It was a big revelation because I went to a Western school in Malawi, Kams Academy. It's the notorious Eton of Africa. And I still couldn't understand African art through my Western education, where art was centered around mimesis, art as a representation. And it's only when I moved into economics, let's say, somehow when I was working on my PhD, it occurred to me that maybe I should try looking elsewhere. And I stumbled on the problem of the gifts. And for me, when I looked at philosophies of the gifts, that's when things started falling into place. Finally, I agreed that, okay, this is leading somewhere. Because all my Western education in art couldn't really explain to me what I had experienced growing up there. But when I moved to economics, I just had a problem with the gift. It came actually out of nowhere. I was reading in a bath one afternoon, and I moved on to that. So anyway, can you play the first slide, please? Can you hear me? If you can play the first slide, just play that. It's one example of a Nyao mask, and these are how you see the masks when I was growing up. I mean, 3 years ago, we were back in Africa filming for the BBC, and these structures are still ruling the villages in Africa. Are you able to play this video? Lively affair, these masks. Okay. You can stop it now, yeah? It's an example of what masking is like in Africa. It's happening now. It hasn't abated at all. I mean, the British try to tangle with these things, but it's difficult because masking, and like other traditions in Africa, they're actually science. It's not really metaphysics. It's not something you can put away. In fact, for me, the West has failed to put away its own masks. I can quickly attribute that, let's say, things like racism are part of the West putting away its masks. So to replace them, it replaces masking with other people, refugees, black people, whatever. But maybe if the West brought back its masks, racism will go away. My theory is that as long as the West denies its animatic side, this side of the human, because masking is how the mind constitutes itself. You cannot have a mind without this other. Uh, and in Africa, we just acknowledge it. We live with this other. And every now and then it comes out. So that's happened in a rough. So the Africans need this, and it's difficult to see how we can stop it because it's part of human nature. You cannot actually exist without these structures. If you're not acknowledging them in art, you create them by other means. As I say, by othering other people, for instance. Okay, can we play the next this one? Hold on. Actually, I'll be quick, but actually what you saw was a train. So I'll show you another version of a train. This is by the Lumiere brothers. So another version of a train from French modernity. The other train was a figure of Malawian modernity. But you can see the music is equally as again. It's equally esoteric. Yeah. Okay, you can stop it. For me, I mean, this is for me as the music in this film is esoteric, seen as strange, but the same in Africa, when the music that's used for masking is as strange to me as an African as it is to you. The art is supposed to be otherworldly. It's not like I understand what's going on with this singing. When I was growing up, I was constantly enchanted, and then the artists who make the masks make sure that it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be otherworldly. And my work actually exists between that figure of Malawian modernity, which celebrated the arrival of the train in Southern Africa. And these trains were actually what used to take men to South Africa and Zimbabwe to work in the mines. There was a time in the late 19th century when you couldn't find men in the African village, actually, because they were shipped to the mines in Zimbabwe and South Africa to work in the gold mines there. So the African maskers, they made the train to celebrate this foreboding image. I remember I was working with a train in Berlin and people were unsettled because they say that in Berlin the train reminds of the Holocaust, shipping people to the camps. And the same in Africa, the train has a foreboding image because it also recalls the time when hundreds of young men were packed to work in the mines in South Africa and leaving behind only women in the villages. So my work exists between the traditional structures. They're not traditional because you can't really call masks. Masks are always a present, I really believe the last man on earth will be a mask, but and it exists between cinema. If you can play, my work exists between those traditional masks, like and the Lumiere brothers, early film. So I've situated myself between the two. This is like many artists in Africa. Actually, African photography is big because when photography was introduced in Africa, many Africans saw its potential for performance to animate. And so it was very close to the African tradition, not so much painting, representation, but certainly photography. For its tendency for repetition, it was picked up in Africa. We have great photographers in Africa, CD Bays and the like. It's not a coincidence. But photography really captures very well the African sense of time. So anyway, if you play this video 1,000 years, maybe. To put it roughly, you say that my work is a form of masking. And indeed, when I moved to Europe, when I started making these films, they took away my sense of alienation. I walked around with a camera, and I don't plan anything. I wear a hat like this, and this was in London. And I like early film, by the way, Charlie Chaplin and the like, which was very popular also in Malawi. And I don't plan. When I see a scene, I see these ghosts and I perform. I ask strangers to film me. And this was in a building site in London. Okay, next one. The films are very psychogeographical, meaning that they capture what I was feeling at the time. Sometimes histories of the place, etc. So there's a hope. London, Bollard, the man dusting, I got that from Charlie Chaplin. I watch a lot of films so that when I walk, these tropes can revisit me as my own ghosts, if you like. This is Mountain Man. I made in California, in the footsteps of one of my favorite the filmmakers, Edward Muybridge. And if you play this, I was in the forest. It was a famous forest in Academy. There were walkers in there, and that's what I did, inspired by a sense of magic in that part of the world. You can see the influence of Nanininia time in Muybridge. Okay, so when I speak of let me speak a bit about time in my work. The time you can see in my work is what you can hear in African music. You hear it in popular music, for instance, inspired by African music. Nanininia time doesn't begin or end, you know. I like that you can start anywhere with my films, and maybe you can just take an image and complete the film in your head. But Namibia time for me is where the crash is. That's in colonialism, because that's in Malawi, the British brought this very linear time of work. And it crashed with the linear sense of time of Africans. And then when I was growing up, the projectionists used to take Hollywood films that are highly structured and then they'll re-edit them, remix them to cater for the average African audience. Because African audiences, their sense of time, they want you to deliver from moment to moment. Hence, for me, I like to speak enthusiasm, which in UK sometimes is seen as suspicious, but in Africa, it's actually when you're structured that people begin to suspect that you have a hidden agenda. So, because it's the whole point is that when you're delivering, it has to be from moment to moment. Pretty much like Shakespeare. Shakespeare didn't wait for the play. He just didn't write words to deliver a message, but every word was its own moment. And that's the kind of thing I want to do in my work. This is non-linear. Every moment has to count. Yeah. Okay. I'll show you next quickly. Non-linear time, by the way, is what is encapsulated in the gift. Non-linear time is that of the gift, and structured time is that of the commodity. Right. To put it roughly. So this is how my films are shown in galleries or immersive. I even sometimes use text. And the text you can see on the walls, the white chap, which was me talking about watching films as a child in Africa. Okay, next. I am more examples. I make my films all over the place. This is, I think, at a transport museum in Covent Garden. What is it? Yeah, I think so. That's where I made so I share these films were first shared on Facebook. The Trust Me was discovered on Facebook. So I tell my students, no excuses. All the curators are looking on Instagram, on Facebook. If you've got anything to say, post it there. A curator or a gallerist to look will find it. I used to make these films and then post them on Facebook with my sisters and stuff. And Stevenson Gallery from South Africa saw them. And we did a show in South Africa. And then Okwi saw them, the director of Venice Biennale, and then invited me over, and that's what happened. But you can't make my films if you don't know the language of, if you haven't, I trained as a painter, trained as a sculptor, all of it. And Okwi must have been smart, because my dad in South Africa was surprised that he wanted to invite me to Venice, ignoring all the other artists in the gallery. But I think Okwi had an eye, because when he asked, where is this guy?
Samson, I don't mean to interrupt you, but maybe we need to speed up a little bit. Just worrying about our session. You're a bit over time.
I'm over time by how many minutes?
Okay.
Okay, can I finish then? I think we're finished. Next slide. I finished. So you can see the sculpture here simply uses the language of film. The main star is big and support star is small, no? End of story. But this, the fourth plinth is for a horse. So what's also luminous about this sculpture is that actually the bigger man could represent the empire, the horse, you know? Especially, it becomes more obvious when you look at the other plinths on the Trafalgar Square, because it's men sitting on a horse. A big mass and a small mass, this is man and horse. Hegelian antagonism, suddenly, the slave master antagonism, suddenly the slave says, I know how to do everything here. Why should I be serving you? So it's like, it's a long story, but basically it animates again, the two figures kiss each other like a film, they animate like masking, and the structure is based on the principal mass. Sorry, run next. Right next, this is next. Yeah, it's based on this photograph, and I think these two men are reenacting actually the principal mask of the Nyao, of the Chewa, which is a mask, which is a who disguised as an antelope. Okay, next I'll show you the structure and we stop. It's this one. So yeah, if you have questions, you can ask me later. But basically, this is the Nyao structure I'm trying to simulate by these two figures. Chirembo means womb, and the womb for us represents where we are all coming from. It's the less than nothing, if you like, in philosophy. And it's very clever in Malawi. We are matrilineal, but it's the matrilineal economy, the gift economy, if you like, is also represented by woman, by womb. I think it solves a lot of problems of situation I'm having with my students at Oxford. Africans already thought about it. Don't put the whole woman on the pedestal, because the woman might want to do other things. Just put the womb. And anyway, the womb is not really like a reproductive womb. Everybody has this womb of possibility. So, okay. We'll stop there.